Valley Forge by
Autumn Reed
and Ryland Anderson. When the Battle of Valley Forge began, the American Revolution between the British and Americans would have already lasted since April of 1775.
On December 19, 1777, Washington took his 12,000-man army 18 miles away from Philadelphia to Valley Forge. Wouldn't it be hard if you had to travel 18 miles in the snow barefoot and carrying all of your equipment to be able to survive just to fight in a battle? Yes, it would be hard because nowadays we have cars to help us get around quicker.
The Americans' plan was to slowly harass the British throughout the battles, but by Valley Forge the Americans had a scarce amount of supplies. Some examples were food, clothing, and gunpowder. Before Valley Forge, the British had won all of the previous battles, but being slowly harassed by the Americans led the British to think otherwise.
The importance of the American plan to win the war was that they used the only things they had to their advantages.
The Continental Army had to fight throughout the battle one little fight at a time because they didn't have enough supplies to last throughout the ongoing fight, like the British could. They had to preserve what they had and use it to their advantage when it became time to fight again.
Imagine living in temperatures in the teens without clothing, food, or shelter. Well, in Valley Forge, the soldiers had to do just that.
During the battle, about 2,000 men died from diseases like typhus, typhoid, smallpox, and pneumonia. These diseases led to a great tragedy.
The British worked hard to win the battle and thought for sure America would lose, but they were proven wrong. America left with a victory and were proud of it. The Americans had more tragedies than the British. The Americans had to survive harsh winters with lack of clothing, food, and very little shelter.
In 1777, with winter setting in and the British at Philadelphia, George Washington chose to make the winter camp at Valley Forge. So what was life like at Valley Forge? The Continental Army was on the brink of collapse. There wasn't much to eat. The troops dined on a meal of rice and vinegar, or fire cakes, a gross mixture of flour and water. As well as short food supplies, there was a lack of clothing, blankets, or shoes. The lack of shoes made the soldiers leave bloody footprints in the snow. Disease spread quickly throughout the camp because of the crowded tents and cabins. Typhoid fever, pneumonia, and smallpox took the lives of many soldiers. Washington was desperate to keep his troops from deserting. He made lashings and shooting by firing squad.
Although Americans had many disadvantages throughout the American Revolution, they ended with a big triumph. They had won the war and created freedom and independence for America.
Washington showed the British that America could win a war by themselves without the British's help.
Both American and British soldiers learned from this battle. The British learned to never underestimate the Americans. George Washington learned how to not only manage money and communicate with the government better, but to prepare and manage soldiers for the battle. Triumphs and tragedies played a big role in Valley Forge. For Americans, the tragedy was that they had a little amount of supplies to survive during the battle. But the battle ended in a big triumph for the Americans as they won the war. The British's only triumph was that the soldiers had more equipment.
They remained there for 6 months from December to June 1778. Americans left with a victory.
This period marked the triumph of moral and military discipline over severe hardship.